Welcome to my budget deck channel where I try to make decks as cheap and playable as possible. So if this is something you'd be interested in, then why not subscribe? Today I have looked at Burning Spirits, the structure deck that has Salamangreats in it that sadly came out after I crafted lots of these. And this is why I still have one Mirage Dalio, a card that is sadly not in the structure deck actually. Don't really know why. It would change how the deck plays at least a little bit, because you then could run stuff in theory like backup secretary and whatnot to have a more reliable way to get Gazelle out and then go on from there. And this card adds another spin to the deck, actually, quite literally, because you can spin a card if you link this card off. So this card is very good. If you want to add a specific single card to this deck, then this comes to mind. Splash Mage, Transcode Talker, there's some stuff that you can add. Access Code Talker, Salamangreat, Pyro Phoenix, those are cards that you could consider running. Technically Baguska as well, because there is some rank 4 engine somewhere deep inside buried in here. But you can already see, first things first, that this is a version that only utilizes 2 of the structure decks, so a lot more bang for your buck, if you want to say it like that, because you only need to spend 1,000 gems instead of 1,500. Not that that's a massive difference. If you want to play triple structure decks, then usually cards to take out would be this card, this one, and like this. Then you can fill up with stuff like triple Spinny, soon triple Gazelle actually, because the ban list is going to come out into effect soon, so you would be doing this. Possibly triple Lady Debug, but not quite sure. The important ones are triple Circle, triple Spinny, and triple Gazelle, and from there onwards you can, well, change up some stuff and do some other things, but this is the main ones. And obviously triple Signed Mining as well. So basically the searchers and the main playmakers for this deck you would want to be running at 3. Probably put up Sunlight Wolf to 3, because this card is quite good, but we have ways to recycle it, which we will be going into. This deck aims to control the board. It isn't really known for having crazy attack point monsters. Even the Link 4 that technically exists is only like a 2,800 monster. It has effects that do stuff, but in here we substitute this by the only card that technically isn't normal or rare, but you will get for free at very starts, like a structure deck card, is Raster Liger. You will probably have this, so this is why I included. It's the only card that technically isn't a normal or rare that I included, but you do not have to craft this, so this is why this card is in here. And with controlling the opponent's board, clearing it off, you usually get to a point where either your opponent surrenders because you have out-resourced them, or where you can go for game, which this deck obviously lacks the option to really go in for heavy damage, but there's ways to do so. So let's talk about the cards that we do run. We run one Salamangreat Mole. This card isn't really necessarily great, but it has 2 things that you can do. First of all, this card is, since we don't have to worry about getting into Mirage Dalio and we have to run level 3s, this card can actually special summon itself from your hand, and it's a Salamangreat monster, which can be quite important as well if you link this off and you have a Gazelle in hand. It's better than stuff like backup secretary then, because this card can actually be counted as a Salamangreat card, and it has an effect in the graveyard. You can banish it and then target 5 Salamangreat cards in your graveyard and shuffle them into the deck and draw 2 cards. 5 is a bit steep. There will be moments where this is somewhat helpful just in the grind game. If you play another really grindy deck, then this card you can send it to the graveyard with some effects as well if you want to, or if you need to. Then it can do this. It can recycle your whole extra deck, which is quite important. If you haven't used the Bailings effect so far, then that can be nice as well. So I felt like including this card because it can special summon itself from the hand, and it's a Salamangreat monster. Usually with all the searchy cards you wouldn't run this, but in this specific version, since we only play 2 structure decks, this card did its job at 1, but there's also other cards you could be playing. 2 Prohibit Snake, because you have some problems in the battle phase from time to time. This card is searchable. This card has lots of synergy. You don't have to run it if you have hand traps, Maxi, Ash Blossom stuff. I don't know, it can be nice, it can be bad. I think you could search this card with some other kind of combos back in the days. It was played with Format Skipper, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong on that one, but I do remember seeing this card in some professional builds back in the time when Salamangreat was played professionally, like a tournaments. I think Prohibit Snake was like a tick that got played as well. Salamangreat Mirror, very interesting cards. When it is added to your hand, then except by drawing it for your normal draw, then you can reveal it and special summon it. So this is another special summon. If you already have Spinny, then you can use Lady Debug to get Mir out, because it doesn't have to be added by a Salamangreat card effect, just any card effect is fine. And even if you start with this card in your hand and you don't search it, you can still discard one Salamangreat card, which can be quite helpful as well, because you do run quite a lot of traps, and they are, you can easily recur them from the graveyard, so this card still works, and you can still special summon it. Sometimes you need cards to special summon into the zone of Sunlight Wolf, for example. Sometimes you need more link material, then this card can be really nice. Now on to more of our normal summons. This deck has quite a lot of normal summons. Literally 7 that do stuff, actually. Technically, if you count Gazelle, which you usually don't want to be normal summoning, but sometimes you have to if you don't draw enough monsters at your starting turn, then you even have 9. It's quite a hard count, but since this deck is kind of grindy, it's not too bad, and you don't have to normal summon Foxy. Like if you have Foxy in hand and Buffalo, you can send Foxy, then special summon Foxy technically back from your graveyard and stuff, so it's not too bad, but they do conflict from time to time. So if you want to change it up, add a few more special summons in form of Mir or a Mole, for example, and want to be cutting the Buffaloes, then that's also a thing you can do. If you want to be cutting the debugs, it is a thing you could be doing. You could also play only one debug. You're fine with silent mining. There's some stuff you can tweak on with the ratios, but that is round about what worked out for me. This card can discard a Cyberse monster and then draw 2 cards, which, since it's a control deck, there will be certain Cyberse monsters in your hand that either do stuff in the graveyard or that you just don't want in your hand anymore, and then you hope to draw into some kind of disruption. Foxy, very good card, can get you into your spell traps, which is quite important, or add another card like Gazelle, hopefully, if you add it, and it can get rid of your opponent's floodgates from time to time, because when you summon it back, you can destroy one face-up spell trap on the field, which, watch out in Master Duel, it will ask you to destroy your own, so don't destroy your own stuff, because that most of the time will be bad. Gazelle, one of the big playmakers, can send your traps to the graveyard, so you can reset them either with their own effect in terms of Roar, or reset them with stuff like Sunlight Wolf, with stuff like Falco. So that's quite nice. This card can also, for combos, send to the graveyard Jaguar. It can send to the graveyard Falco. So it does quite a few things. It can send to the graveyard Spinny even, because you can summon this card back, which can help in certain scenarios as well. Spinny is a very good extender, can boost your monster by 500 attack, and if you think that won't come up, trust me, it will, because the attack value of most of the Salamangreat cards is terrible, absolutely terrible. So yeah, that is what it is. Lady Debug, a good normal summon that searches you playmakers like Spinny, or extenders like Spinny, and Mirror, which is quite nice, because if you then use this card, which you can, to go into Bailing, search the field spell, then you need at least another Salamangreat in hand that you can special summon, so you can use Sanctuary with Sunlight Wolf, and then that is fine. This card can summon itself back. It can set one spell. Trap card can actually set Will of the Salamangreat as well, which can be quite nice in the grind game. So this card is... And 1 or 2 actually tried it out with stuff like Salamangreat Gift, a card that shouldn't be discounted too easily. It sounds like really okay on paper. In reality, you will find yourself not having that many Salamangreats, because you can't discard a Salamangreat card. You have to discard a Salamangreat monster. It can work in conjunction with Sunlight Wolf, and then Sunlight Wolf adds a monster back to your hand if someone has summoned in the zone. Then you discard that with Gift, draw 2 cards, draw into good stuff. Is nice, it's not too bad. You can send stuff to the graveyard. It's okay. Like, I tried to run it. If you want to run it, it's not bad. It's really not bad, but there are better options usually. So that's why I decided not to go for it. But it can be quite nice with Falco and other stuff. Jaguar, stuff that summons itself back. And it's also somewhat a graveyard recursion, because you can shuffle your extra deck monsters back into the extra deck from your graveyard and then summon this card. So this can be quite nice. Double Foul summons itself. Technically, can go into rank 4s, so it's not too bad. Yeah, it is what it is. The good thing is most of your cards, if not basically any, don't really lock you into anything. So technically, you're not locked into Cybers or even Salamangreats, but usually, especially because it's the structure deck, you don't have many more options, and the Cyber stuff usually works with itself a bit as well. But yeah, not much in this deck locks you. Now, controversial cards, Great Bison. I run it, first of all, attack value, and you can summon it off of stuff like Will as well, if you don't use it by its own effect. And it's searchable, not by Silent Mining or Lady Debug, but it is searchable by the Salamander Circle at least. So it's not too bad, it's okay. You can run it. If you get it by Foxy, you can get it. And in the grind game, it can be nice, especially if your opponent is maybe getting the upper hand, because this card can negate effects on the board, but it doesn't target for it, which can really help. If your opponent has stuff cannot be targeted and destroyed, then you just negate that effect, and then you can be destroyed. So that is quite nice. Also gets stuff, your link monsters back to the extra deck, so that's okay. It's more for the grind game, because obviously you need 3 Salamander monsters in your graveyard, which with the whole link summoning stuff isn't really that hard to achieve. So the card is better than it sounds like. If you don't want to run it, cut it, but I actually had lots of moments where this card came up in the end and actually did stuff for me. Sadly, the effect isn't from the field or the graveyard, but maybe that would be a bit strong. But in the end, would it really matter in this specific deck, because the deck is already reasonably strong for being a structure deck in this game. Silent Mining, discard stuff that you don't want in hand or that you can reset, and also Searcher stuff. So very good card, and very good value of this card anyway, because this is very, very good for any kind of Cybers decks. Mathmech comes to mind, just thinking about decks that actually are quite viable at the moment. Field Spell helps you to double summon. Basically, it's a Gemini summon for link monsters in this kind of regard, which is reasonably fun, and it's searchable by Bailing, so 1 is fine. You can run 3, I felt like 2 was okay. Summon stuff from hand, summon stuff from graveyard, good in the grind game, also good if you want to push for game, because it can summon 2 as well, which is not too bad in certain situations. Forbidden Chalice could go in second and good going first, and sometimes the attack boost also matters for your monsters. Salamander Circle, somewhat of a protection, mainly an add card, but it's a quick spell, so do not discount that. Cyanide Crosswipe, just because it's in the structure deck, you can play any other spell trap that you like as well. That works, but this card isn't once per turn, so I kind of like it. And it is a Cybers deck, and you can destroy 1 card on the field, and it works with Cybers Reminder, because it can add it back to your hand. So I felt like I wanted to go for this just in the theme of it, but you can technically play like triple Lost Wind as well. It's just good going second as well, but do as you like. This is usually a slot that you can also fill with hand traps. Lost Wind, very good in the grind game, get stuff back, good going first, helps you running stuff over by battle as well. So yeah, all in all, great card for this control deck. Salamander Great Rage at 3, because you kind of want to be drawing one of the two, because you can only usually send 0 to 1 with Gazelle if you hit the Gazelle thing, which obviously if you play triple the structure deck, then you will be hitting Gazelle more often. But if you don't play hand traps and whatnot, 3 is quite a nice ratio, and you do want to be playing this card at least at 2, because it's an Omni Negate and it can constantly recycle itself with Sunlight Wolf and its own effect. So this card will be stuck to your board if you're not in a massively losing position. For the extra deck, double Cybers Reminder actually, because you run quite a lot of level 3s, and also because the effect is quite nice. You can get stuff like Silent Mining back, you can get Crosswipe back. You have to watch, this locks you into Cybers cards from the extra deck, but every card in the extra deck basically, besides a Sophiel, is a Cybers card, so it doesn't really matter all that much. Sophiel, because you have rank 4 stuff, Baguska comes to mind, could also run, especially if you're going first. There's quite an easy way of getting into that as well. Bailings, Protection, and Search, and Link 1, so it does lots. I added 1 Flame Administrator, just because, like I said, sometimes you will have lots of Link monsters, you will have lots of Link material, technically, and this can boost your Link monsters by 800 attack, which is significantly strong to push for game, especially if you don't play stuff like Access Code Talker, so this card does stuff in this specific deck. Sunlight Wolf, one of the big playmakers of the deck, recycles stuff, recycles more stuff actually, locks you a bit, because you cannot summon the monster that you added back to hand. You have to keep that in mind. If you get stuff like Gazelle back, then you can't activate the effect and, well, cannot normal or special summon it, or monsters with its name. So if you draw another one, it doesn't work either. Haha. Yeah, it's nice. You can get stuff back from the graveyard as well. Like, that's basically what this card does. Proglio, kind of nice in a deck that runs so many Link monsters. The effect is okay, but run anything like you want. I play triple Heat Leo, 2 is probably fine, just because you get so many of this card. For some reason you get 2 per structure deck, so I decided to max out on it, but you don't have to. Decode Talker Heat Soul, technically a very, very good card. I think like in the main variants of Salomon Great, one of the big cards, but this card gets a lot better if you play a hand trap lineup, because then technically your draw is also live, and in this deck your draw is, unless you draw into Prohibit Snake, not really live, and you probably would rather keep your Sunlight Wolf on board because of rage and stuff. And yeah, it's okay to run it because it's in it's in the structure deck and it's a good card, but you can cut this completely technically and the deck would still be working the way it is right now. And the Raster Liger, just a link for that you can do stuff with, push for game, pop some stuff. Not too complicated. Other cards to talk about, Raccoon sounds interesting, especially in a grindy game, and especially considering that your link monsters are so weak. The card does stuff, but it doesn't do enough to justify running it over other things, and your deck space is kind of tight, but I just wanted to mention it because I did like the effect. I did like that this effect technically is possible to pull off and technically is possible to be played. Same kind of for Salmon Great Wolfie. This card is nice recursion wise and helps you with rank 4 stuff, and it's not completely terrible. Yeah, wouldn't run it anyway, but I did want to mention it. Hope you enjoyed the deck profile. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, but most importantly, I hope you have a nice day.